Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine, the survivor's guide to the cultural apocalypse. And today, we're talking prediction markets, the only place on the internet where your crippling anxiety about the future can be used to your advantage by gambling on a geopolitical disaster. Forget betting on sports, it's 2026, and we've moved on to betting on reality itself. Inflation, elections, wars. Will Kim Kardashian pass the bar exam by a specific date? That's a real example. I just looked it up. The hive mind has spoken, and it has a price tag. And it's not just a niche hobby for the data nerds. We're talking 25 billion traded in the single month of March 2026 across platforms like Kalshi and PolyMarket. This thing is absolutely massive and has created a smoldering cultural crater. Today, we're diving into the ethics of betting on missile strikes, soldiers allegedly insider trading on military operations, and why Donald Trump Jr. is hanging around the advisory boards. Are prediction markets the final predictable boss of financial nihilism, where if we can't afford a house, we might as well bet the rent on the next disaster? To explore this digital casino, I'm going to need not one but two men who are down to their last penny because they just can't catch a break when trying to guess what drug Clavicular will overdose on next. It's John, Junior Boost Maloney, and very special guest, will you welcome to Don't Praise the Machine, ladies and gentlemen, expert financial analyst and Bloomberg journalist, Tom Toxic Asset Maloney. Tom, welcome to the show.
Apricot Pepsi, thank you. Great to be here.
I was going to go with Tom Senior Boost Maloney.
I didn't think of that. I was running through Claude and ChatGPT, and I kept saying to it, give me a silly middle nickname that has something to do with financial markets. And this was one of the ones. This was one of the ones that it spat out. Tom, you're the first guest that we've had in quite some time, which is super exciting. Can you, apart from being John's brother, which is unrelated to why you're on the podcast, you and John actually don't even really have a relationship. I was surprised that you were even John's brother. I reached out to you because I needed a financial expert for the show. And you said, oh man, this is a crazy coincidence that you've reached out to me because I happen to be John's brother.
Exactly. It's the first time we've seen each other in 10 years.
I know, and I've been forced by family to listen to this podcast since it started, so it just works out perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, what a great coincidence. But you are a Bloomberg, do I call you a Bloomberg journalist, Tom? How do you introduce yourself at dinner parties these days?
Yeah, I say journalist.
And the reason that we got you on the show today is because you wrote a profile on the PolyMarket CEO, is that right?
We sort of did a very short profile of him last year because the company got an investment that valued it at some insane amount. I'm going to say something like 15 billion. And that made him a billionaire. And at the time, he was the youngest self-made billionaire on the planet that we'd identified. So, we just did a quick turnaround story on who this guy was and, the history of PolyMarket and, why people are interested in it now. And, sort of an interesting guy. He built PolyMarket in his bathroom, started during COVID.
Wow.
And, a couple of years later got raided by the FBI. He's been kind of fairly controversial. But now he's very rich and very successful.
Yeah, this is the age of the internet where just kids who live on the internet and are growing up are having these incredible. I mean, it's the same with the Steak Boys. The boys who started Steak
made me think of the
were just
Steak
meeting in like gaming discords and then saying, "Hey, we spend a lot of time on computers. Why don't we tap into people's crippling gambling addictions and become billionaires?" It's the pivot. It's the pivot that every young boy on the internet needs to make. John, are you excited about talking about new ways to monetize your knowledge and insider skills?
Yeah, I am. I've just been taking kind of off the books bets outside of the TAB on Sydney Road, and out the back of Crown Casino. But it amazed me I had no real idea that this was a thing. Actually it wasn't until I looked at some of the research that you gave, the homework that you gave me to look through it, that I thought, let's get let's get senior boost toxic asset Maloney onto this because as soon as people start talking about futures, I just go, is this like in Trading Places? Because that's my only real reference point.
Yeah. So many of my things, I was trying to get a Trading Places perhaps reference into Tom's nickname as well. I was like, maybe Tom, but I thought it was going to be too niche. I was going to call him like Tom Frozen Concentrated Orange Juice Futures Maloney, and then I was just like,
Tom,
that's probably a bit too niche.
Turn those machines back on.
You need that on the sound effect machine, Al. You know.
Yeah. Turn those machines back on. Turn those machines back on.
You actually, I don't know if you used it on the podcast, but you did actually send me a kind of isolated audio file of him just going, turn those machines back on. Shane Coplan is the guy who's, by the way, 27. So yeah, pretty young to be a billionaire, I would say, especially, you know, if you weren't just born into it, squillions of dollars.
Yeah. Hip hop name Young Billy, we call him.
Yeah. Okay.
So like you say, John, a little bit of an intro here to explain what predictions markets are, particularly for people outside of the United States. And, you know, my mum and dad, especially my dad's going to love hearing about this because he's always looking for a new opportunity to have a flutter on something weird. And it's exactly like you said, he used to have to do it with a strange fellow out the back of the pub, you know, a market maker who was out the back of the British Hotel in North Adelaide.
That's right.
But now he can just jump on PolyMarket. So what are prediction markets? So, and feel free to jump in and clarify or correct me, Tom or John, if you want to add anything here.
Sure.
But to get started, they're built from something, an important word is event contracts. So unlike perhaps a, you know, traditional betting like horses or something like that, where you have various odds, prediction markets are more a simple yes or no instrument on these event contracts. So you basically have these two outcomes. Example would be, will candidate X win the election, or will inflation exceed 3% by the end of the year? And the event contract trades between 1 and 0, and the price reflects the market's collective estimate of probability. So if a contract, yes, trades at 70 cents, and the market is then implying a 70-cent probability that the event will happen. So you can basically come in and find markets for things that traditionally you just would never see. And these are the things that are capturing media headlines as well, famously. I mean, the most recent Super Bowl, PolyMarket had markets for things about, you know, would Bad Bunny do this at the Super Bowl? Would somebody wear that at the Super Bowl? And I think the other thing that's kind of interesting about it compared to gambling is that you have the traditional model of gambling is you have the house who you're betting. So like a key difference here is that you're betting against a person as opposed to like betting against the house. So this is kind of important when it also comes to why prediction markets have exploded and the different regulations. And maybe Tom, I can ask you as well, because the sort of thing that allowed this to happen with, I mean, at least Kalshi. So the two we're going to talk about the most, the two big prediction markets will be Kalshi and PolyMarket. PolyMarket's regulated outside of the United States, but Kalshi is regulated within the United States. And what's very interesting about Kalshi is that sports betting has been very heavily regulated in the United States for many, many years. But this company Kalshi appeared and argued that they were not betting because they say, no, we're not gambling, we're hedging risk and management. And then they approached the Commodities Futures Trading Commission to get their license. And this is not, they're not who regulate the Commodities Trading Futures Trading Commission is not who regulates like sports gambling in the United States. It's like a different body. So how is the like Commodities Futures Trading Commission? What's their role generally Tom? Like they are the frozen concentrated orange juice, aren't they? Isn't that futures trading?
Yeah, well, they regulate the exchanges on which you would go out and buy your frozen concentrated orange juice futures. And what these groups like PolyMarket and Kalshi argue is, well, we're exchanges, we're matching up buyers and sellers. We're not making markets in this stuff ourselves. So, like you were talking before about your dad going out, the back and making a bet with some rando in the street. That's kind of what you're doing on PolyMarket, right? Except it's matching up, thousands of people making those bets all around the world. And that's why it works. That's why it gets liquidity. But it's not like Kalshi is introducing the bets that it wants. It's like you could go on to Kalshi and say, I'm going to make a market in, I don't know, like Albanese stepping down next month or something like that. And these are the odds, and then it'll be up there and people can take the other side of that bet. But yeah, the way the arbitrage works is sports betting became sort of semi-legal in the United States not that long ago. Before that, it was really just legal in, I think, Nevada and maybe a couple of other places, but it was very limited. And then following that, certain states legalized it. And so there are, like, similar to the United States, there are websites we can go and make various bets, but it's state by state. So like it's legal in New York, but it's illegal in Texas, I believe. And Kalshi and PolyMarket say, well, we're not doing sports betting. We're doing these, event markets, and we're regulated by the CFTC, which is federal. And so we're just going to ignore all of these state regulations, and we're going to ignore all these state bans. So it's a real kind of sort of nonsense arbitrage, because everything they're doing in spirit is exactly what the sports betting websites are doing. If you go on there, you're getting odds. The odds look exactly the same as if you went on a sports betting website. So I don't know how long that's going to last, but that's an interesting arbitrage they've discovered at the moment.
I mean, I'm just trying to understand the logic of the distinction, and maybe it is just kind of stupid, and they're just exploiting a temporary loophole. But there's no bookkeeper as such. There's no house.
There's no bookie.
Yeah. And so that's the key difference, right? Is they're charging some sort of service fee,
That's right.
for you to use the platform, but that's it. They don't win if you win, or lose if you win, or whatever. There's none of that.
Yeah. In fact, famously, PolyMarket is not even taking a cut right now. I don't think they're making any money. But presumably at some point they will.
They're just doing like a loss leader model to just get themselves out there. Is that like the idea?
Yeah. And PolyMarket, I believe that you can only make bets using crypto.
Yeah.
And that's because it was banned in the United States for a long time, and they didn't want to have people making bets in US dollars and all that kind of stuff. And you still have to use crypto, I believe, to make bets.
Okay.
And it's fascinating, Tom. That of course makes sense. The thing about the CFTC having federal jurisdiction, and so so Kalshi's come in and said, oh well, we're all good because we're regulated by the CFTC and they cover the whole country. But then you have a lot of people, states in particular, who are missing out on a lot of gambling tax revenue from Kalshi. And not only that, there's obviously other issues because a whole bunch of states probably have laws in place that were potentially driven by a kind of morality vote at some point, and now these organizations have come in and just basically said, oh, we're just going to allow gambling in your state and there's fucking nothing you can do about it. I think one state in particular has done something super hilarious where they found some like law from the 1700s where they can charge Kalshi criminally, and so they've thrown that into the mix, which is very interesting because a bunch of states now have gone, we're not having this. And of course, the traditional gambling, the sports betting companies who have been regulated really tightly for all these years are getting their lunch eaten, and they're going, fuck this, like this is not happening because this is our sweet green, and you've just rolled in.
Well, they seem to be doing a kind of double act of saying that on the one hand, lobbying for things to go back to the way they were, but also preparing for the possibility that they won't go back to the way they were, and trying to start their own version of, this kind of model.
Yeah, buying their own exchanges and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it looks like also there's a bit of if you can't beat them, join them going on at the moment. I think like CNN or some fairly reputable organizations have, like, I can't remember which news network it was, but some organizations that you wouldn't have expected would really get into this have just gone, well, the money is just too incredible. I mean, that statistic, 26 billion traded in a single month of March. They're just going, well, if this is going to happen, then we need to get involved, because this is just the most incredible cash cow if this sticks around.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting when you watch a news organization in the US and they're talking about an event, they'll talk about the PolyMarket or Kalshi odds of something happening, like the odds that, the US is going to launch a ground invasion into Iran and stuff like that. It's up on screen when they're talking about these events. It's really bizarre. And of course, political stuff like, the odds of someone getting elected, that's been going on now for 5 or 6 years.
Wow. And are the big investment banks, are they kind of opening themselves up to this kind of trading and seeing it as part of the futures market, or are they just kind of staying clear of it for now?
Not banks, but you have these prop trading shops. So they're like kind of high frequency traders. Okay. So groups like Citadel Securities and Susquehanna, I don't know if you've heard of these guys, Jane Street, they process huge number of trades. Some of them specialize in options and futures and stuff like that.
Okay.
And they've got into these markets in a big way. And the other interesting thing that I've been reading about is a lot of people are setting up AI agents to go onto these markets and trade. So AI agents will go out there and scour the news and try to identify misplaced odds and go and make bets on your behalf. And that now makes up a sizable percentage of the trading that's happening on these prediction markets now.
Yeah, I'd heard something about that as well, and there's this kind of, I mean, once that starts, it's kind of on borrowed time, because eventually presumably if that works, they'll just start beating all of the kind of just kind of retailer investors or people who are just speculating using their own gut.
I know.
That's right.
There is something weird about this idea of all of these AI agents out there betting on, real life outcomes, what's happening in the human world, and doing it all like completely virtually.
Yeah, by just scouring like they do with everything else, just scraping a bunch of information and looking at it from a probabilities lens, I guess. But yeah, that's bizarre. And so eventually, though, you would think maybe people will, I don't know, if they're never winning, because the other side of these bets is always some kind of supercomputer, then they're just going to stop using these platforms.
Well, you say that, but then sports betting people are happy to go and lose their money all day long. They know that the book, in theory, the house has a better idea than they do of the real odds, and they're still happy to go out and make
That's true. That's true.
So
it's the thrill of beating that bot.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing that always captures the both the human imagination, but certainly the media's imagination, is that these prediction markets allow for betting on anything. So if you feel like you have special knowledge in a certain area, I mean, I saw a guy who was basically like a pop charts nerd, and when he found out that you could bet on which, how many albums Taylor Swift was going to sell in her first week, he was like, oh, this is sweet. I can finally monetize my knowledge. And this is one of the arguments that the prediction markets have. When the prediction markets now are doing press and doing comms, the prediction markets are saying, look, this is a big one. They're saying we need to be around because we're a truth agent, we're a truth seeking agent. As Tom mentioned, they got the election of Donald Trump right, and when a lot of other people didn't. And there's this argument that political polls don't give you a true representation of what's going to happen, because nobody's put their money where their mouth is. Nobody's got money on the line. It's just people. You ask them, are you going to vote for Donald Trump? And they might be in a certain mood. They might want to be honest. They might want to be dishonest. But when people have got real skin in the game, as they say, which is actually money, you tend to actually spend a lot more time trying to get the outcome correct. And then when obviously you have this en masse, the argument is that it's more of a truth machine. But yeah, I'm starting to wonder what I could monetize.
What's your
My knowledge.
Yeah.
What's my edge? Yeah. How can I be a shark in the game? It's probably going to be something to do. I'll get really specific about East African marathon runners and what they're going to do.
You could have made some money on the sub 2 hour time, you know.
I know. I could have picked Sebastian Sawe coming in at under 2 in Berlin, in London last week. I've got a couple of examples here of the weird stuff that people are betting on. So inflation results, we've got number of hurricanes or weather outcomes is a big one. And think about this too. Think about all the people that are a little bit spectrumy that love the weather and guessing the weather, and suddenly you can like put a bet on. Obviously, election outcomes, movie or box office performance. That could be one of ours, John.
Yeah.
AI and space milestones is a big one. So there's a lot of stuff about will ChatGPT release this new model by this date? And then, of course, the really fun ones are the cultural or entertainment events, whether an artist will headline a festival like our boy Bad Bunny.
Will there be a Wicked 3 and will Cynthia Erivo be in it? That kind of stuff. That could definitely be our... But, I mean, one of the interesting things too, and this kind of connected when I was thinking about it with... So last week you were talking about on the podcast, which you very successfully did solo, you were talking about this kind of phenomenon where people create this sort of illusion of virality by outsourcing, you know, the creation of shorts to lots of users or followers who, you know, then make commission if those shorts of their content do particularly well. And it's a sort of form of what's sometimes called astroturfing, where it creates this sense of, you know, a sort of organic groundswell when in fact it's all being, you know, carefully manipulated and deliberately curated. And similarly, there's a couple of high-profile examples of people seemingly doing that with these platforms by, you know, placing inflated bets on a particular outcome, encouraging other people maybe to participate in those bets to either inflate the odds or inflate the apparent odds of a particular outcome, or just kind of make it look like people are interested in that outcome in certain instances. So, you know, if you're like a kind of real outsider candidate in a sort of political race and you want to make it look like, you know, you're a bit more serious than you are, or maybe you get on PolyMarket and start you know, challenging other people to bet on whether you can win the race, and suddenly there's a, you know, number that can flash up when CNN's covering your candidacy, and it makes you kind of look like the real deal. Or I don't know, maybe you want to inflate the chances of Iran being invaded, and so you could, in theory, kind of try and use these platforms to kind of make it look like everyone's anticipating that that's what's going to happen, and therefore sort of increases the likelihood that it does happen, or kind of inures people to this feeling that it's inevitable that it's going to happen or whatever, which is fascinating because it's just like, you know, supposed to be predicting, but as with so many other things, it ends up kind of actually determining or partly determining that outcome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because like famously, people are more likely to vote for a candidate if they think that there's some momentum behind them. It's a sort of strange psychological thing that we have as humans, where if it looks like your candidate's going to get blown out of the water, if the polls say, oh, this candidate's like, he's polling at nothing, you just go, well, I'm not going to turn out. But then if it goes, oh, actually they think he's going to win, there's tons of momentum, it actually encourages people to go out and vote, as you say.
Well, sometimes there'll be like, you know, the race is neck and neck. Which encourages people to go out and make sure their vote is cast. Whereas if it was a sort of viewed as a foregone conclusion, they wouldn't bother. So you can see how it's open to that kind of manipulation, which is interesting. Sort of wag the dog thing.
And Tom, you must be aware of some of the ethical backlash because there have been markets made for war outcomes. Somebody was, I think, arrested recently for insider trading about the Maduro arrest, where it appears that somebody had insider information from the Trump organization that was going to happen, and there was suddenly a lot of trading activity around
I think it was actually a soldier.
Event.
I think it was a soldier involved in the actual raid. And he bet and he won $400,000 or something. So
That's
a pretty large
right.
amount of money. And, but, you know, just this kind of an insane thing to do. And he's not the only one. I think there was somebody in the IDF who made some sort of bet on, you know, the conflict between Israel and Iran, and he got identified. But yeah, it's a real risk. And I mean, people have always known, I guess, that soldiers have this information that needs to be kept secret. But, you know, sharing that information with a journalist has like limited upside. But if you can go out there and make serious money, that's a pretty big temptation.
Yeah, yeah, fuck yeah. And 400 grand to just, as soon as you would get the slightest bit of information where you think, man, there could be a real market for this, and I know that it's going to happen, you would jump straight on. And of course, because of things like that, because people now have access to government information and could potentially monetize it, there's a lot of contracts out there about whether aliens will be announced within the next X amount of days.
Yeah, and sometimes people look at these things, don't they, and they speculate about, I mean, there was one about aliens, and they were saying, well, this looks like somebody with insider knowledge is suggesting that this is about to happen because of the amount of money they're putting up on the possibility that it will happen. So you get this kind of, you know, interpretation of the sorts of bets that people are placing or stakes that people are putting on certain outcomes or whatever the to not use the language of gambling, which I'm sure PolyMarket wouldn't want me to do. But I mean, you get people like that who are using, you know, if you're a soldier who's doing that in relation to an imminent invasion or something, I can see why that's illegal, because effectively you're misusing classified information. But what if you're just doing what would otherwise constitute insider trading? I mean, in that context, would it be captured by insider trading laws, or is it just because it's a kind of market of its own, do those rules not apply? What do you think?
I think that right now that it doesn't really apply because they're not regulated by, I mean, it's going to depend on where you are when you make these kind of bets and everything. But in the US, it's the SEC, and the CFTC is a different thing, and they have their own rules. And because most of that is betting on commodities where people you have a certain amount of inside information. You might think, well, my harvest is going to be really good this year.
Right.
Or I think, you know, I've been driving around my area and like, you know, everybody's crops suck. And so I'm going to make a bet one way or the other. But you don't have, you know, CEOs who know what the results are going to look like next quarter. So the inside information is kind of different.
Yeah.
And it's also inside information that, in their view, they kind of want to be used to identify the right price for this commodity, like it's being used correctly. But now with these kind of events, it's opened up this whole new thing where these people do have, you know, basically a form of inside information that's really easy to monetize. And the laws haven't really caught up. I think right now it's only illegal to the extent that you're breaching your contract with PolyMarket and Kalshi. I think the illegality beyond that is pretty murky. I mean, I'm sure if you work for the federal government, then they're going to say you can't do that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's very murky.
And the White House has instructed people not to bet on these platforms, hasn't it? Or at least in relation to certain events.
Yeah. Or they say this, but then another very interesting thing about the prediction markets is that the Trump government, it seems very hesitant to come in and throw their weight around to try and control them or regulate them. And in fact, Donald Trump Jr. is an advisor to at least Kalshi, and I think he's had conversations with PolyMarket as well. And I don't think it's been publicly disclosed, but knowing what we know about the Trump organization and their comfort around just general day-to-day corruption, it does seem that what is potentially happening is that Trump Jr. is an advisor on the boards of these companies, which probably means he's just getting paid by them to make sure that they are looked upon favorably within the Trump organization.
And then suddenly there's various kind of military events that are people called Heat Pegseth 69 are betting on and stuff.
I think also another thing I should throw in here, because maybe nobody cares about this, but this is the one thing that nobody ever explained to me clearly. And every time I heard about prediction markets, this was the detail that I was really caught up on. Was how is it defined when this event has happened? So it is kind of simple, but basically every contract. So every time there's a contract put out for is this going to happen or is that going to happen? Every contract has a predefined rule book that has an exact definition of the yes or the no, and the official data source that the yes or the no will be taken from, and the measurement method and the settlement date. So that's how, like, if Bad Bunny plays a particular song, then you go to the rule book and you go, okay, have all these conditions been met? And then it automatically goes, yes, we think all these conditions have been met. I'm sure there's several people have to approve that, yes, these conditions have been met. And then the yes or no is settled. Because you can imagine, like, a lot of that stuff is, I mean, one of them I looked up this morning was, will Kim Kardashian pass the bar exam by May 3rd? So I mean, like, are you getting that from, is TMZ like a source on this,
And some events,
it would be in the rule book.
Some events might be, I mean, like, I don't know if it was the invasion of Iran or something, or when does that commence? Is it when the planes take off? Is it when they land, or whatever?
Well, I mean, it's been that exact scenario played out recently, because will the US launch ground operations against Iran? And people were arguing that when they rescued pilots, because they had soldiers on the ground, that was a ground operation. And so it's not always clear cut. I mean, the other one was, will Cardi B perform at the Super Bowl? And she was in the crowd, like, she was out there with Bad Bunny, and there was like a 2-second clip of her, like, kind of dancing, like wiggling, but she wasn't like singing. She wasn't a formal dance. People were like, well, was that performing or is that performing?
It's very performance. That's great.
So it sounds like it should be black and white, but a lot of these things are very debatable.
Yeah. And even if you try and, as with anything, as with law, when you try and set the rules in advance, there's always going to be some weird factual permutation that slips between the cracks.
And I think the way that it's actually officially decided right now is people, there's some PolyMarket token or something like that people can own. And I think they get some right to vote on whether, on how a bet has been decided, like positively or negatively.
Okay.
And so you have a lot of people who are, in theory, there's a large enough number of people voting on this stuff that it works out fairly, but there's definitely been instances where it seems like people have had some vested interest in a particular outcome, and people are being very pissed off that something seems to have been decided, not based on what actually happened.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I think also we should touch on the fact that prediction markets are the latest example of what's been called financial nihilism. So you think about how wacky betting has gotten in the United States in the last few years, how it's connected to sort of politics and meme culture and various message boards, Wall Street bets on Reddit, and a bunch of stuff on 4chan. And it reminds me, during the pandemic, you started seeing crypto really pop off again. And then suddenly you had NFTs, people paying silly amounts of money for JPEGs of monkeys. And it's being described as just the latest example of people feeling like they don't really have a stake in society anymore, financially, that they can't get ahead. They're working full time. They've done all the things that society told them to do, but the cost of living is just going up, and they don't really feel like they're going to be able to get ahead in life by doing the traditional things like, putting a little bit of money aside each week so you can eventually buy a house. Suddenly all the houses are too expensive. Suddenly all the cities are getting too expensive. And now you have all of these different ways that you can try and get rich quick, and it just gets dark very quickly.
It's true.
Yeah, instead of going, bet on whether the supreme leader of Iran is going to be assassinated,
Exactly. Like, and it's sort of, I mean, when you think about investing, say, from the point of view of, like, I don't know, you put money into an idea that is actually a good idea, and then you benefit everyone else benefits because the idea gets, implemented.
Yeah.
It's an invention, or it's, whatever, it's some new company. This is like the the opposite of that, right? There's not really any kind of social benefit except for someone who's bet the right way makes money. It's not,
But it's a truth machine.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I, of all people, I've always longed for truth machines. I mean, this is the weird thing too, is that the commission, kind of, it's, as I understand it, its historic sort of wheelhouse would be very sort of tangible things. I mean, yes, it's kind of futures, so there's this level of abstraction, but it's like it's frozen orange juice concentrate, or it's pumpkins, or wheat, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, just these kind of wackadoo events that have no bearing on anyone. Like certainly nobody, in kind of who sort of owns anything tangible is necessarily. I mean, I guess you could still connect them to those things, but you could equally connect it to some, random event that's occurring in another part of the world that's got no sort of basis in anything tangible.
Well, some of the stuff that's on there, people do argue has like a practical beneficial effect, like betting on the weather. If you're an insurance company or some kind of agricultural company, you might have an interest in like hedging your exposure to a certain type of weather.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could do that by buying futures of whatever weather event, or temperature is going to be average above X over the summer, or whatever, and that might be like a way to, if that event is going to happen, your harvest is going to be worse, and so it might be a way for you to hedge your exposure.
I see.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously the majority of the stuff on there is not like that. It's just random stuff that nobody is trying to hedge. They're just pure bets.
But we could, I mean, one way to keep it human-centered is to just, for people like us who want to use it responsibly, to just bet on things that we don't, bet in favor of events that we don't want to happen, so that we're hedging disappointment. Either this thing happens, or if it doesn't, then I get a little bit of money.
That's the classic. It's the classic. Like you bet a bunch of money on the sports team that's playing your team that you don't want to win.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if the Adelaide Crows get thumped in the grand final, and I bet on the other team, well, it's going to be my disappointment is going to be leveled out by the fact that I made a bunch of money.
That's right. Whereas now you can apply that to geopolitics and celebrity events and everything that you might experience disappointment or elation about.
For me, I would just
Kim
constantly
Kardashian's going to pass the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. For me, it would just be I would just bet really negative things about Jake Paul, because I just want good. I just want good things for Jake Paul in his life, and I get real sad anytime anything bad happens to Jake Paul. I also love the idea, like at a dinner party or something, that everybody just starts sort of sharing what they do for a living, and you're sat next to somebody who says that they're like in operations for an insurance company, and then you just say, "Oh yeah, nah, I'm just like an expert in clavicular, and I bet on him. I bet on whatever's going to happen. I bet on whatever's going to happen to clavicular. That's my job. I'm a clav futures expert."
That's right. A clav analyst.
It could be a real job these days. It's mental.
Yeah. It's true. I bet on celebrity facial blemishes, so I know I'm good at knowing who on the red carpet is likely to have a visible pimple.
I'll have to look this up. There must be markets for guessing when celebrities are going to get work done. Are going to get a deep plane facelift or something like that. Which
true.
the latest
If not,
of
there
which,
should be.
if I can throw it in. Did you guys see Adam Levine from Maroon 4, Maroon 7? Oh my God, loved it. If anybody was gonna like fuck his face up, you could have guessed it was gonna be Adam.
It's true.
I've actually just sent you. If you check WhatsApp there, John, I thought this would be this would be fun. I've sent you some PolyMarket trades on celebrities at the moment, so you can just go through and have a look at some of these, and just if you could announce some of them to the ones that take your attention. These are the kind of things that you can make. You can put your daughter through college if you put some good money on some of these outcomes, John.
They might be blocked in Australia.
Yeah, for some reason it's not loading, which tells me
okay.
I'm going to get your VPN.
Of course.
That the nanny state of Australia isn't letting me have fun.
John can't access PolyMarket. That's hilarious. All right, I will. So the top one,
I self-excluded. I've self-excluded from PolyMarket.
You blocked yourself.
Yeah.
We have. Will Jimmy Kimmel be fired or resign by May 31st?
Okay.
We have. I think this is a Drake album. Who will be featured on Iceman? I think that's a Drake album that's forthcoming.
Okay.
What will be said on Iceman? So you can you bet on the lyrics. We have like Trump, Obama. This is what they're saying will be said on Iceman. We have Super Bowl, 6-7, nuclear, Pinocchio, Russia. Yeah.
What about Kendrick? Surely.
Kendrick's second. You're right there, John. Kendrick is second.
Okay.
Then we have Will Forsen beat XQC's Minecraft speed run record by X date. We have this is in relation to Kim Kardashian's daughter. Will Northwest release her own album by date X?
Cool.
This one's my favorite. Will Clavicular cry on stream by May the 1st? So that has to happen today.
Yeah.
Then we have
that's one to bet against, because if he does cry, sure, you've lost some money, but you've seen him cry, so it's all fine.
Yeah, that's right. Taylor Swift pregnant before marriage. Will Lady Gaga attend the Met Gala? Yeah,
sure.
Topics here: weather, tech, culture, geopolitics, finance, Iran. Have you done any of this, Tom? Are you allowed to even say if you have? Is this like a conflict of interest professionally? Can you say, yeah, I felt like I had pretty good inside knowledge on this on particular streamer?
We're not allowed to. But I was reading something about an Israeli journalist recently who was, just some guy, I think, in Tel Aviv, and he was reporting on, Iranian missiles, hitting Tel Aviv, and one seemed to have gotten through air defense and landed on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. So he wrote a quick story about that, went and visited it, wrote up the story. Next day, he gets an email from some rando saying, hey, this seems to be incorrect. This seems to have been like a missile that was shot out of the sky, and it wasn't one that was actually, intact when it landed. Here's what I'm basing that on. Please correct your story, which is incorrect. And he basically went back and checked the crater and was like, no, this was an intact missile. I can see from the crater, I'm not going to change the story. And he told the guy this. Anyway, this guy keeps emailing him, and he gets kind of increasingly, off the rails, like we're getting aggressive and stuff, until it gets to the stage where he's like, this is your address. Your wife is XX and you've got a kid who's blah, blah, blah. You don't know who you're messing with. You need to delete this story immediately. You have until like 12 p.m. tomorrow. If you don't fix this story, terrible things are going to happen to you. Anyway, he contacted the police on all of this stuff. Nothing ended up happening to him, but he found out that it was basically this syndicate of people who had bet on missiles hitting Tel Aviv. And his story was being used as the basis for it being, decided as a yes. And a missile hit on Tel Aviv. And all of these people were threatening him because they had huge amounts of money riding on this thing.
Holy shit.
So it's outcomes like that are going to start happening.
Yeah.
People don't like the truth, and they're going to want to change the truth to suit their bets.
Yeah. So Tom, as a financial journalist, there's just things that you shouldn't be betting on.
No, I think it just creates a conflict of interest, because you have that sort of power to, write a story that, effectively defines truth for a certain, the PolyMarket potentially. And so it's just, it's a bad idea.
Man,
we should probably also recuse ourselves from doing it, Al, because we have a very decisive impact on the topics that we cover.
We will definitely be, when the contract is set up,
Yeah.
the yes or no will be defined by what I say in the intro of what I decide during the show will be the single source of truth for that contract.
Yeah.
Well, brothers, I want to say thank you so much. This has been an excellent episode. And it's been so good having you on, Tom. That's really added a level of gravitas to what is normally just us fumbling around. And I'm a little bit anxious. I'm a little bit anxious now that we're going to have to get experts on for everything that we talk about. Because I'm just like, man, this guy's so all over this topic that I feel like now I'm just going to have to go, oh, we can't talk about light language without getting a light language expert on every week.
It's true.
Is there anything you boys want to say for the end of the show?
Well, I would like to listen to a light language expert. I think that would be hugely entertaining if you could find them.
John's still sending me light language reels all the time. Like light language.
I just love the matter of fact. I mean, because they are experts in the way that they kind of speak so matter of factly. Oh, this is how people from Arcturio speak.
It's great, isn't it? Just that it's a given.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, you've just made that up, but okay. Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Tom Toxic Asset Senior Boost Maloney, for coming on, and it's a family affair.
Yeah, my pleasure, Junior Boost. Hopefully, I've set the bar pretty low for the next guest.
Well, we gotta go through all of our family members now so as not to play favorites. We'll find.
That's right. What's Peter going to be an expert on? Trains, Planes, and Automobiles episode.
The comedies of Steve Martin. Yeah, that's true. Dirty Rotten. Excellent. Talk us through Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Peter.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you so much, John. Everybody, if you like the episode, we'd love it if you could either subscribe to us on YouTube. If you open your little YouTube app, search for Don't Praise the Machine, the podcast will come up and you can see Tom sat there in Melbourne next to John, which is an absolute treat. And our next one, we're going to do 3 of us together. It's going to be in New York City. That's what's going to happen. We're going to get over there for a little New York City, set up a table. We'll put a table up in Times Square or Rockefeller Plaza is where we'll sit down.
That's right.
To record the Christmas episode outside the Christmas tree in Rockefeller Plaza is where we're going to be for the next Don't Praise the Machine Christmas episode. Thank you so much, everybody, and we can't wait to see you next week. Can you both do it?
Yeah, let's both do it. The podcast.